Good morning, everybody. I think we should get started.
Good
Hi,
morning.
good morning.
Hi, Saket. Yes, we can start. I guess it's already 9:41.
Yeah, I
Yes, we
was
can
just
start.
waiting for a few more people to join in, but now it's already 9:41, so I believe we should start. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so the agenda for today's session is there on the screen. I hope it is visible.
Yes, it is visible.
So we'll be continuing on what we discussed in the last session. So Web API is the core topic, and within Web API, different features we started exploring. The initial implementation of the Web API we did, we saw the read-write operations also, how they can be coded. But so far, we are just working with the in-memory data. Today, we'll make use of the entity framework as well to go for more complex scenarios, along with something more on the attribute-based routing. Then we'll move on to talk about the serialization and content negotiation. This is something we discussed a bit in the previous session as well, where we spoke of the fact that your web API or RESTful API should provide the response the way how the client is looking for, with two of the formats being the main formats, JSON and XML. So how exactly that is configured? JSON is the default behavior, but XML is also supported, but I said that it needs to be configured explicitly. So this content negotiation and serialization will be mainly revolving around this. And then we'll move on to talk about the security features in Web API, how the Web APIs can be provided the access in authenticated and authorized mode. So different options that we have, we'll be exploring them, and then one of the implementation we'll see with the help of identity server, or simply the .NET identity client will be using within web API to provide the authenticated and authorized access to the end users. Okay, so let's get started with the very first part, where we want a web API to be built, which is on a database first of all, and it actually provides me more complex scenarios. So let's get back to Visual Studio. Open your same application that we built in the last session, the sample API we created there, which dealt with the in-memory data, right? The controller is no more going to be used from here. We'll be creating a new API controller rather. Or maybe if you want, we can just have a new fresh application created here. Better will be that, because there will be conflicting things. So let's go ahead and say file new project. ASP.NET Core Web API is what I'll choose. Next, I'll name this as API underscore demo web API with EF for entity framework. Next, .NET 5 is the target framework. Authentication type for now will keep none. Configure for HTTPS is a good option. Enable Open API support enables the Swagger and Swagger UI within our application for the API. So that's a good thing. Let's say create and close this. By default, you get the weather forecast API here. So this weather forecast.cs represents the model. I don't want this anymore. So I just right click and delete this file. Similarly, the controller for weather forecast, the actual API also I don't want. I go to controllers folder, I select weather forecast controller.cs and get that also deleted. I'll have just what I am actually looking for, my own things. So this was more of a cleanup stuff that we did. And the next thing is I want to have a model of my own to be created. So let's right click on the project and say add new folder. We don't have a models folder by default here, so we add that and we create our model class over here. So right click on models folder, then select add, then select class, name this class as DPT. Add couple of namespaces to be imported. System.componentModel.data annotations, followed by system.componentModel.data annotations.schema. Here, as we are looking to integrate the API with Entity Framework Core, we will be making use of some extra annotations like table. I want to map this to a table in the database called as departments, DBDS. Then I have my first property, PROP, tab, int department number, followed by string dname, followed by string location. I want this department number to behave like a key, primary key, and I don't want this to be auto-generated with identity. So I put database generated. That's my choice. If you want, you can go ahead with auto-generated with identity also. Okay. Database generated option dot none is what I'll say. By default, for integer columns or integer properties, which are marked as key, the identity property in SQL Server is automatically set. I want dname to be required. I want string length of 50, that is max length, and with a minimum length of 3 characters to be applicable for dname. And for location, I just want a max length of 50. 50 characters, I mean. So behind the scenes, it will automatically generate the relevant data types, correct? We saw this with Entity Framework Core being used with MVC application, correct? This is the same thing. We'll not get SQL Server configured though here. We will use in-memory provider. And you know what needs to be done to actually make it talk to a SQL Server. You just need to change the provider and put the right connection string in place. Am I right?
Yes.
Now here, before we proceed, first of all, we need to add some NuGet packages for Entity Framework. So how do we add that? Solution Explorer window, right click on dependencies, manage NuGet packages, browse, and let's search for Microsoft dot framework core. So this is the first package, Microsoft dot entity framework core. The version which is supported by .NET 5 is anything that starts with 5.0. Right, so in that, the latest version I'll pick up 5.0.17, install. Okay, I accept. Apart from entity framework, which other framework or which other package we installed? I installed Microsoft.Entity Framework Core.Design. Again, the same version 5.0.17. Okay, I accept. Then Microsoft.Entity Framework Core.Tools. SQL Server we won't be using this time, so I'll not install the package for SQL Server. Whenever required, you can just install the package by coming back over here, right? And then the provider for in-memory. I select Microsoft.Entity Framework Core. In-memory. Oh, something went wrong. I'll just say recover. Let me check if all the packages are installed correctly. Dependencies, packages, no, I just need to redo it. Manage NuGet packages. Yeah, so I just need to add again. Entity Framework Core. Version 5.0.17. Install. Okay, I accept. Save. Then Microsoft.Entity Framework Core.Design 5.0.17. Install. Okay, I accept. Save. Then Microsoft.Entity Framework Core.Tools. Same version 5.0.17. Okay, I accept. Save. And then finally, Microsoft.Entity Framework Core.InMemory. Same version 5.0.17. Okay, I accept. Save. All good. By going to install tab, we can see which all packages we have installed. Microsoft.Entity Framework Core, Microsoft.Entity Framework Core.Design, Microsoft.Entity Framework Core.Tools, and Microsoft.Entity Framework Core.InMemory. 4 packages, right? Yes.
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 Let's close the NuGet package manager. Go to Solution Explorer. Right click on models where you have just one class as of now. Select add, select class. Which class we are going to add now? The one that provides us the CRUD operations or database operations along with database connection. So what class we call it? DB context, right? I call this as application DB context. Whatever name you want followed by DB context is what the convention says. Here we will import one namespace, Microsoft dot entity framework core. That gives us the base class here to be inherited from by the name DB context. Then here I create a property of type DB set, which itself is a generic collection. So I want to make it based on the department class. So it will be a collection of department objects by the name departments, followed by a simple constructor that has got a parameter of type DB context options by the name options and chains to the base class constructor. by calling base options. Right? Or
Yes.
DB context is ready. It will encapsulate, or this class encapsulates the database connectivity along with the query preparation and execution. Right? Because of this class, we don't need to actually handle the database connections or query preparations and executions at all. Correct? Let's close this. And now I want my application to be built. So build solution. You can use keyboard shortcuts if you're aware of. And then let's right click on controllers and say add controller. Which type of controller? Of course, API. Now empty and read write actions we have already explored. And now we do have entity framework based backend as well. So let's explore this API controller with actions using entity framework. Select this, click add. Model class is department. DB context class, application DB context. And what is the controller name you are looking for? Let's say I want to name this as department's API controller. Add.
Saket, can you go to application DB context once?
Sure. Just one moment. Here it is.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Okay, so I believe this scaffolding requires the SQL Server package to be installed as well. Ideally, it shouldn't. But for now, instead of just wasting time in finding what is the reason, what I'll do is I'll just add that package. We can explore that later why SQL Server is needed because we are not planning to use one. Let's search for Microsoft.Entity Framework Core.SQL Server and get it added with version 5.0.17. Surprisingly, it says it is already installed. Okay, I'll just uninstall and install again. Oh, removing that, I believe, removed other packages as well. That's surprising. No worries, I'll just get all the packages installed quickly. Here is Entity Framework Core, it's installed. Uh, then I had Microsoft.Entity Framework Core. Okay, let me remove this and check the install tab. Yeah, all are there. No need to install again. Fine. Only SQL Server is what I made available. And then I just build my application once more. Controllers, right click, add controller, API, API controller with actions using entity framework, add model is department, DB context is application DB context, controller name is department's API controller, add. Okay. DB context options is not resolved. Okay, let me check. is it so? There is no mismatch as such as well. So it should work. Okay, I'll just remove all the dependencies and re-add. Something wrong with this. Only swashbuckle I leave. This was the first one. Packages, manage NuGet packages, browse. Microsoft.entity framework core is what I search. Entity framework core 5.0.17 install. Okay, I accept. Then Microsoft.entity framework core.design or version is 5.0.17. Okay, I accept. Microsoft.entity framework core.tools 5.0.17 is the version. Install. Okay, I accept. Then Microsoft.entity framework core.in-memory 5.0.17 install. Okay, I accept. And then at last, Microsoft.entity framework core.sql server 5.0.17 install. Okay, I
Saket,
accept. Yeah,
one more doubt. As we
yeah,
are using SQL Server, so why
yeah.
we have to use the in-memory NuGet package?
Actually,
Because
Bhushan, actually, I want to use in memory only, but I
okay,
guess there is some tooling which has got a dependency on this package. As I said, this needs to be explored why it is needed. Ideally, it should not be required, but
okay, okay,
some tool has got a dependency which gave us the error earlier, right? That's
okay,
why
yeah,
I'm adding SQL Server, though I'm not going to use it.
okay, okay, sure. Okay,
So
thank.
right now, I just want that the time to be saved instead of searching for why it is needed. Uh, that can be done later on also. Just
Okay,
I'm adding the package here to
okay,
satisfy the need. Yeah.
yeah,
So let's verify and install packages list. So it looks good. Just close this NuGet package manager, build the solution again, and try add the controller once more. I hope it works this time. Department, application DB context, and department's API controller. Okay, probably because we have not added the connection string yet in the configuration. No, but in memory provider will not need it. But yeah, we didn't provided the provider as well. So before actually adding the controller, let's come back to startup.cs file, and just before services.add controllers, let's say services.add DB context of type application DB context. options goes in options dot use in memory provider in memory database. And this application DB context is having trouble because we didn't imported the model's namespace. So let's say using API underscore demo web API with EF dot models. What's wrong here now? Yeah, we need to give a name to the in-memory database. Let's say it is Quinnox DB. Okay. Save it, build it, and now try adding the controller. So right click controllers, add controller, API, API controller with actions using entity framework, add model class is department, DB context is application DB context, name of the controller is departments API controller, add. Yeah, so this time there is no issue, our code is generated. Most likely the error was because of we missed on this. It was not able to find out which provider to work with. And now even if that SQL Server package is missing, it won't make any difference. It will just work. But my point?
Yes.
So this is done. Your API is ready. If you see here, we have application DB context being resolved from the constructor parameter, resolved based on what registration we have done here. So this is the DI container from which it is asking for the instance of the DB context class and assigning it to the local member, and with the help of which it is providing all the other operations. So we do have enumerable of department being returned from get departments, get department with ID. Here is the route parameter ID. And then the find operation, if not found, I mean, if it is null, not found, otherwise returns the department. Put department, this is for update operation as we discussed, right? So the code over here is quite similar to what we actually did with in-memory collection, just little bit modified to work with entity framework now. So like this incoming department merging need not be done property by property. Directly we have a merger option available. We just say that, okay, make the entry of this object into the context and then set the state of it to entity state dot modified. So it automatically manages this as a second copy. And when the save changes is called, this is merged with the original data for that particular department number, right? Concurrency exception may come in two cases. One is like some other user has deleted that record already, so not found will be returned. If it's not deleted but modified by some other user, it will just rethrow the exception informing that this object has been already modified. So do you still want to modify? In that case, you have to refresh at your end as a client and then see if the changes are still needed. If needed, make those changes and submit the request once again. And there is no content which goes back. Okay. And then we have post department. It just adds to the collection and call save changes. Here, there is just one possibility for the error, like the primary key might get violated, means duplicate value for primary key coming in. So it returns the status code related to conflict. 409. Okay. If created, it just says created at action, so and so. This is the ID, this is the object. And then goes the delete department. Right? What if I want to search the department by location? And one location may have multiple departments as well. So for that, I just copy this method, maybe along with comment, paste it here. Here I say, let's search by Pune. Instead of ID, I want this parameter to be named as location. Instead of saying action result of department, I'll say action result of I enumerable of department to be returned. More angle bracket coming in. And here I change the parameter. I make it string location. The name of the parameter here must match the route parameter name. Right? If I want, I can give a different name to this also. I need not change this method name. Rather, I can say here only I put get departments by location / location. So the route which comes over here should be this. So it will be like this. The request has to come like this. Now, how do I find? I'll say this is where departments, context.departments.find will not be helpful because find will work always on primary key. So here I say where D as in department goes in D dot location equals to location and return a list of it. And then I say return OK departments. Fine. So that is how I can have the control on what route should be mapped to which action. If I want it to be more elaborative, I can do this, though it's not needed. If I pass location, it will map to this. If I pass ID, it will map to this automatically based on the data type. Got my point?
Yes.
Still, this is important because many a times we will have a requirement where we are filtering on the basis of some fields who have similar data types. Then how we will differentiate? That's where this portion comes in. Right? Apart from using these extension methods, you can actually think of using language integrated query expressions also, if you are aware of. Let's start. Here comes Swagger UI. And you can see 3 get options are there. You can see it has detected our route as well. Initially, there is nothing. So if I say get, try it out, it will be showing me empty array. It's in memory database, first of all. I say post, try it out. Let's add 4 or 5 records. So let's say department 10, HRD, Pune, execute. Just confirm that it was successful. 201 means successful. Then I say this is 20. This is finance and legal. Pune. Execute. This is also done. Next I say this is 30. R&D. Bengaluru. Execute. This is done as well. 40. Production. Hyderabad. Execute. 50. Sales. Hyderabad. Execute. 60. Marketing. Hyderabad. Execute. And then I just collapse post. Click on get. Execute. All records are there. Just get this data copied. Because we are using in-memory collection, we might need to add this again. Copy and paste this in Notepad so that I don't need to type again later on. I can just copy paste from here, right? All data is there. I want to try out get by ID. So let's say get by ID, try it out. ID 40 is what I want to search for. It shows me. Now I want to search by location. So I click on this get, try it out. Here I say search by location Pune. Execute. There should be 2 records displayed. I want to search by Hyderabad. So here I change this to Hyderabad. Execute. And 3 records are displayed here. Got my point? So you can have any kind of variation done within your implementation as per your need. Basic 5 operations are generated by default, but that is just initial sample stuff. Your application may not depend only on those 5 things. You might require variations as well. So this example was to demonstrate the same. The variations are possible. Is it clear to all? Definitely,
Yes.
put and delete are also going to work. We need not try them as of now. Correct? This get, I can actually search by changing this URL as well. Here I say get departments by location / Pune. Yeah, here I need to put API as well because the route contains API into it. So API / Did I make any spelling mistake or something? Let me go back to levels and see. Yeah, so departments API is another thing. The API name I missed. So here I put departments API. Sorry about that. And see, we have 2 records being displayed, right? I changed this to Hyderabad and I should be able to see 3 records now. I changed this to Bengaluru. Only 1 record should be there. And same way, if I put ID as 10, this is what I get. ID as 20. This is what I get. If I search for some ID which doesn't exist, let's say 70, I just get the status code 404 not found. That too in JSON format, I'm getting response. Yes. Isn't it nice?
Yes.
I am interested in testing this API using Postman tool also. You can go to postman.org and download and install Postman if you don't have it already. If you have it, just launch it. The UI for Postman looks somewhat similar to this. I'll just get all the tabs closed, whichever are open already. I don't want to save any changes. I click on this plus button to create a new tab. Get request is I want to try out without any parameters, just the API address I put there and click on send. And this shows me the result in JSON format. All 6 records it is displaying me. Yes. By default, it looks like the content type asked is JSON. What if I override that? I want XML data. So for that, I just need to go to headers. And here I say content type as application. Default is application slash JSON. So JSON format is there. I say application slash XML. Now, if I click on send, what format do we expect it?
XML.
Let's see if it provides. It still gives me JSON. No error, but output is not what I expected, right? Plus, we are running our API within Google Chrome. Even if you are using Microsoft Edge, it uses Chromium engine only, same as Google Chrome. Okay, so practically Chromium engine by default sets the content type as XML only. What that means is by default, the browser should have displayed the data in XML format. But what's happening? In browser also, it is showing me JSON. Each browser has got its own different data type or content type. Chromium engine based browsers by default look for XML. But here, despite using Chromium engine, I'm getting JSON only. What does it mean? XML not supported? Initially, it looks like, isn't it? Yes or no? To overcome this, I just stop my application here and let's close this file controller. Application DB context you can close. There is nothing that can be done from those files. You have to do this content negotiation somewhere here. Okay. So what do you think? Whether it is configure services or it is configure method which will help us?
Configure services.
And how do we do that? What is the configuration we put?
The headers we need to add.
No. So here your statement, which is important, is this. You're saying add controllers with default configuration. Comment that line out. Let's say I want controllers. So services dot add controllers definitely is needed, but it should have the support for XML serialization also. What it means, it should respect the client request. If client is asking for XML based data, it should respect that. It should provide the output in XML format. So here I say dot add XML serializer formatters. We do have another option, add XML data contract serializer formatters also. So that will give more control on how the XML will be generated. Okay. So the base one is XML serializer formatter. And if you want better control on that, XML data contract serializer formatter can be used. For now, I just go ahead with this. Save and run again. Get, try it out, execute. Most likely there will be no data. Couple of records will get added. So here I say try it out. I remove this, and this is why I copied the data and the notepad. So maybe I just add all the data one by one. Copy, paste, execute, added. Next, I take this, paste it here, replacing the original one, execute, added. Third one I take, replace this one with new one, execute, added. Next is fourth one. Execute, done. Fifth one,
Sanket, already the data is there. Again, why we are executing?
we are using in-memory database, right? So if you have restarted your application, your data might get lost. If it is lost, you have to add it. If it is already there, you don't need to add it again. Got it?
Once
If you are,
we stop running, then the data will be vanished.
yes, correct. Once your process recycles, your data will be lost, right?
Okay.
If you are using physical database like SQL Server or something, you need not do this again. Am I right? So get, execute. All 6 records are there in JSON format as of now. Let's see if I can change the content type over here. This is just for a accept header. There is no provision where I can provide the content type as such. No worries. Let's check in Postman. First, I want to go ahead with JSON only. Original feature should not be lost just because of the new feature being added. So here I check JSON is fine. And then I say application / XML as content type. Send. This is still giving me JSON. Why? That should not be the case. I expected it in JSON.
In bottom,
Wait,
there is a.
wait. Accept application JSON and accept application / XML. Yeah, there it is. Not content type. Content type is input type. Accept is basically the return type. So here I am able to get XML. So this should be possible here also then. What I need to do is I say this is application / XML. I hope it takes it. Yeah. So we are able to produce XML result. But at the same time, if I try to put this call to the API directly within the browser address bar, I just open a new tab. I'm still able to see JSON only. I said browser based on Chromium engine, put the accept header by default as XML. Then why JSON? Now XML support is already added here, right? Why JSON then? That's because this needs to be further customized to respect the browser's default header request also. For that, I just add it again. And here in add controllers, I go for a lambda expression. Options goes in options dot respect browser accept header being set to true. So by this, I'm saying, please respect the browser's accept header setting as well. Save and start. I should be able to see XML response now. Again, because I recycled, I probably need to add the records again. Maybe we can just try adding one of the record and see. So I'll say try it out. One of the record I'll put there. If you want, you can put other records as well. Execute. And here I just refresh. I'm having XML now. So this is all what we call as content negotiation. Why content negotiation? Because the client is now negotiating what kind of content it wants to receive. If there is some legacy client which is more comfortable working with XML or which has been implemented for XML input only, I can migrate to web APIs from web services pretty easily, right? Without changing much of code. So in that case, I will need this configuration, XML support configuration. If it's a fresh client, probably I can start using JSON immediately. But again, it depends what kind of client application you are creating. Some client applications, some client environments will be more comfortable working with XML. Some will be more comfortable working with JSON. Lightweight devices most likely will prefer JSON. But heavyweight clients, proper computer systems, desktop applications might be more comfortable with XML. Yes or no?
Yes.
Any questions here?
No.
Sanket, I have one
Yeah.
question regarding
Yes.
the status code. So
Yes.
200 and 201.
Yes.
So while HTTP GET, I am getting 200 response and
Right.
201 is for the post.
Yes. Now, see the 200 series means successful execution. Whether it is 200, 201, 204, all means successful. 200 is basically used for read or delete operation. 201 is successful status code with the confirmation that the insert operation was successful. And 204 is like the request is successfully processed and has updated some data on the server side. So that's the extra information that the HTTP status code carries. 20 means successful. Then whether it is 200, 201 or 204, that will define the nature of the request which was sent back to the client. Sorry, to the server. Understood?
Yes.
Successful is okay, but what type of operation was successful? That I should know, right? Whether it was get request or post request or put request. Correct?
Yes.
So that's why we have different series. Like for errors also, we have 500 series, right? Basically for something that is beyond web server, you have 500 series. The web server level errors are usually denoted by 400 series errors. 401, 402, 403, 404. Each status code has got a different context. 404 means not found. 401 means resource probably is there, but you are not authorized to use it or to request it. Got my point?
Yes, Sanket. And regarding the in-memory database,
Yes.
so where it gets saved in our the application code
Within
itself,
the
or
applications process, when you start your application, there is a process created, right?
yes.
Some what we call as the memory working set is assigned to your application, right? Within that, it is created. So once your process is recycled, your memory allocated to the application will also be recycled, and that's why the data is lost. Understand?
Yes, Sanket. Thank you.
Any further questions?
One more query, Saket.
Yeah.
Regarding the XML means formatters means
Yeah.
by default we have JSON, right?
Yes. If we don't configure anything, default is JSON.
And means the options dot respect browser accept header means whichever the client is requesting. Which
Yeah. So without putting the accept header, if the request is coming, uh, the requesting client must have something of its default, right?
Mhm.
Like whether the request is generated by browser or Fiddler or Postman or some custom client application, whatever it is, there must be some default. So that's what it is. Respect browser accept header means whatever is the default accept header coming in from the client, respect that instead of just returning JSON.
Okay. Then suppose client has requested XML only. So then
Yes.
do we need to do this add XML series for formatter for the same?
We have to, because without that XML formatting itself will not be done by the server. Server will still return JSON. We saw that initially, right? When only
Okay.
this first statement was there, add controllers. So
Okay.
even if client was asking for XML, it was still returning JSON, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the API has been configured to return JSON only by default. Only one serializer has been mapped to it.
Okay.
And
Got it.
JSON is the serializer which cannot be disabled. JSON will always be there because that's something which is expected from any RESTful API. Correct?
Yes. Yeah.
In addition, whichever other formatters you want, you can add. What my point?
Yes.
You can create a custom formatter also if required. I'm just pasting a link in the chat box, which will guide you how to create and use a custom formatter. You can just try it out.
Okay.
Have a look at your chat box. Just see if you are able to access it. There is a section into this page which takes you through how to do the content negotiation with custom formatter.
Yeah.
They're trying to implement the formatter for CSV format, comma separated values. One of the legacy format once again. But yeah, there might be some clients which need CSV, right?
Yes.
It just shows you how to create a custom formatter and how to get it configured.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
And trial is also with the help of Postman once again. So there you just need to change your accept header type, correct? Complete example it is. You can easily try this out with this example, what we have built right now. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so time for the break. After the break, we'll move towards the authentication authorization for the APIs, secure APIs. Okay, we'll resume at 11:05. Fine.
Yeah, sure.
Hey guys, I'm back. Shall we proceed?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So the next feature that we are going to explore is the authentication, authorization, and the options to implement the same thing. But before all, we actually need to understand exactly what is the need for authentication authorization. Anybody would like to throw some light on it?
So unwanted person should not access the application, and unauthorized person should not access the area
Right.
that should be not allowed to. If I am a
Yeah,
normal user, I can't access the admin rights.
correct. And if it is a customer centric application, one customer should not be able to access the information of another customer. There should be
Yes.
complete isolation. Plus,
Okay.
the interception of the information or interception of request responses should also be either stopped or uh, maybe if not if cannot be stopped, they should be made little difficult, right? So where we use encryption. Now for encryption, a web API framework doesn't have anything of its own. The reason behind that is .NET framework itself has got plenty of encryption APIs built into it. Correct?
Yep.
You have all the different algorithms which are popularly used across the world for encryption available in the form of different APIs. And those APIs also enable you to write your own encryption algorithm and use them within your application wherever and whenever needed. Correct? Now, what are the
Yes.
ways using which we can implement authentication authorization? For this, again, there are two terms we are using, authentication and authorization. So what is authentication in this?
So I should
Authentication is
allow
all about your
permission to access it.
credentials, not
Yes.
permissions. It's all about your identity, who you are.
Okay.
Does the application know you?
Yep.
In simple terms, are you a registered user, known user? Correct?
Yes.
So when you go to office, you use your RFID cards to mark your in and out, and that also is integrated with your attendance, correct? So your RFID card, is it something specifically designed for your organization, or RFID card is a generic thing which can be used by anyone across the world? Practically, it is generic. I can also carry an RFID card, right? But will that work in your organization? No, because there is a unique ID for each RFID card, and your organization server maintains the registered unique IDs of the cards which are permitted by them, right? Or which are known by them. So while issuing, they record that ID. And if the card with those known IDs has been swiped, it means it's a known one. If there is a RFID card being swiped whose ID is not known by the system, simply it won't work. So what is checked? Whether I have a valid card or invalid card, right? So if it is
Yes.
somewhat connected to your entry gate, whether the entry gate will open or not depends on whether the known card is used or unknown card is used. Correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Frequencies may match, everything may match, but the ID is something which is not in my database. So it's an unknown card, correct?
Yes.
And same thing is applicable for the applications also. Whether I know this user or not, which will decide whether the user should be allowed to get in the system or not. only one permission is there, whether to allow or disallow, right?
Yes.
Allow, disallow the entry, right? Now, what is authorization? Authorization is more about permissions. What permissions you have, what level of access you have. Again, back to the RFID card. You have RFID card, which allows you to access various locations within your organization's premises. But does that mean you have the access to each and every location, each and every area within your organization? Probably not. Wherever your data center or the servers are kept, you may not have access to it. There might be some restricted projects also, right? Where each and every employee of the organization may not be permitted. Only people belonging to that project might be permitted. Am I right?
Yes.
So that's a secondary check. First, identity has to be checked, means who you are, and then what permissions you carry need to be checked. So who you are is authentication, and what permissions you carry is authorization. Correct?
Yep.
Okay. Now, both work in conjunction with each other. Without authentication, the authorization cannot work. Am I right? Authentication is something which is mandatory. Correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Now, what are the different ways using which the API can be secured? API can be asking for authentication, and based on authentication, then authorization. Authorization is all application level thing, mainly how you get into the system. The authentication is more important at the top level. So you have something called as basic authentication. Most basic level of authentication means there would be some request headers which will carry your credentials with each request going to the server, and those headers will be processed to see if you are a known user or not. User ID passwords may be encoded, encrypted as well, but still not secure because they can be easily intercepted, right? Because every request is carrying it. Yes or no? The more the data
Yes.
travels on the network, it is more hackable, more interceptable, right? What are the other ways? You can go for token-based authentication, where the credentials may travel only once with the first request, which probably is the login request, and the token is issued for some specific amount of time. And then with each request, only the token information goes to the server instead of credentials going. And server just checks the validity of the token, whether the token is still valid or not. It has not crossed expiry and it is not tempered with by anyone. So there are some checks also which are placed on the validity of token. If someone tries to temper it, the checksum basically gets disturbed and the server declares that this token is not valid. It's something which has been tampered with, right?
Yes.
That is token based authentication. Now there has to be some token provider for this, right? This token provider could be open authentication OAuth protocol. Now the version that we use for OAuth is OAuth 2.0, which might additionally carry the authorization codes as well. Mainly used with the client-side applications like mobile applications or single page web applications, right? Where the tokens are requested by the client and returned back as the part of maybe the URL itself. The other way is the token can go back as the response body also. OAuth usually returns the token within the URL, response URL, right? And then we have JSON web tokens also, where the response body carries the token information, which is then cached by the client. And with every request, only the token information goes to the server, only the crucial token information, no credentials. Even the token information also can be encrypted if required. Encryption is important in case if you are looking for maintaining the authenticity and integrity and tamper-proof usage of the web token. JWT, JSON Web Token. Why JSON Web Token is the name? It's a token which is going to carry all the information, token information in JSON format. Then there are other formats also like SAML, SAML, security assertion markup language can be used to define the tokens. You can also make use of OpenID Connect, which is built on the top of OAuth 2 only. This OpenID allows you to provide the authentication by the third-party authentication servers, like maybe connecting your application to Gmail or Hotmail or LinkedIn or any other service, maybe Yahoo, something like that. Correct? So
Active
instead
Directory
of
is also be
maintaining your
considered.
user store, maintaining your user store on your own, you can actually delegate that to a third party and you just trust the third party. If Google says that yes, this Gmail ID is valid, I trust that this Gmail ID is valid. This is what OpenID is based on. Yeah, there was some question.
So Active Directory also we can configure with this OpenID.
Sorry, come again?
Azure Active Directory can we connect with
Of
OpenID?
course, of
Azure.
course. It's not OpenID. In that case, it goes with the Azure AD provider itself, which is configured with identity provider. Azure AD is not OpenID based, right? And
Okay.
if you're looking for OpenID behavior, in that case, you have to configure Azure AD authentication with OAuth. Then OpenID behavior will be available, right?
Okay.
Another way is you can use API keys, but that's not also very secure because every request needs to carry the key. Key can be an encrypted key, but again, it can be intercepted in between, right? It carries some data. It's just like carrying the password, right? And based on this, then you can provide the role-based access control also. Correct? So let's see the implementation, how we get it done with the help of an API or for an API. With the
Sanket,
help
can you,
of, yeah,
can
go ahead.
can you show that Postman that where we have different types of
Yes.
authentications? The headers.
Yes. You mean the security thing or just the general headers?
No, here we will have that OAuth, OpenID.
Yeah. So it's there in this section where you have a separate tab available for the request authorization. Here you have the different types. Because it's something to be decided by the client initially, in what way the authentication request will be sent. You can actually select it as a client. OAuth, version 1, version 2, or it's a bearer token, it's an API key, basic authentication, and NTLM authentication. These are some of the old protocols also, not anymore recommended, but yeah, there might be some legacy applications still being used. That's why it's still added into the Postman. So these days, the options which work or which are used the most are API key, bearer token, basic authentication, OAuth 2, and then, yeah, that's it. In some specific requirements, Akamai Edge Grid might be used. AWS signature is just like API key, which is for APIs hosted on AWS. Okay. So this automatically creates a header and gets added over here once you configure it here. Got it? So we'll have a look at this also in a short while once we are implementing or we are done with the implementation of the security for our web API. Got it? For
Yes.
this, actually, I would like to make use of our previous project, as it will not require us to add the data with each and every execution. So I'll just say open project solution. The one which I'm looking to open is from demos, web APIs, demo web API. This is the one we created in the last session, right? Where we already have some data being added in the static list, right? So I don't need to feed it again and again across the executions also, correct? The first thing I should do is I should decide what needs to be protected. Is it all of these actions, or is it one of the action or two of the actions? So whatever is my chosen target, I just put the attribute authorize on it. Only authorize attribute means the user needs to be a logged in known user. This comes from this namespace ASP Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.authorization. If it is not added by default, you can add it. Authorize attribute will start working. In case if I'm looking for role-based access control, I can actually add roles equal to, and within double quotes, the comma separated list of the names of the roles which needs to be authorized, like admin role, like finance role or HR role, whatever it is, so that the user from the specific role will be able to access the protected content. If I put it directly on the controller level, that means all of the actions are protected. If I put it on the action level, that means it's not the entire API, but only that action which runs under protection. Got my point?
Yes.
Now, actually, we need to create a new project also over here, which will be used as an identity server for us. Okay. So for that, I'll just open developer command prompt for VS 2019 or 2022, whatever it is. Move to the location where our projects are present. So I go to the root, then I say go to users, Saket, there should be one drive. Within this, I go to desktop, Quinnox, demos, web APIs. All my web API projects are here. And here I say I want to create a new server. So for this, the first thing I want is one new template to be installed, project template. For that, I issue the command .NET new -I for install. I want to install a template for identity server version 4 and .templates. It will install the new project templates. Press enter. It's .NET space new space -I space identity server 4 .templates. There are multiple templates it has installed. Empty template is there, ASP.NET Core Identity is there, Admin UI is there, Quick Start UI is also there. This is basically to get some sample application created on identity server. Okay. I hope everyone got this.
Can I show that command again, Sanjay?
Yeah, here it is. The highlighted one.
Thank you.
Okay, now better is we create a fresh new solution only. And that means in Visual Studio, I'll just get this project closed. So just go to File and say Close Solution. Save any changes, whichever are made. And for now, you can just keep this open as it is back to the command. Once this is done, around 6 templates it has installed. Just say CLS to clear the screen. And then here I create a directory called as MD. The name is Quick Start. Within which all the related security based web APIs stuff I will be placing. Let's switch to this directory, CD Quick Start. Let's make another subdirectory here named as SRC for source code. And then say CD SRC here. Done. We created a folder named as Quick Start. We switched our context into it. Then we created the folder called as SRC and we switched our context to it. Done, everybody? Yes.
Yeah.
Now we want to create our first project, which will be working as a identity server of our own, custom identity server of our own, with identity server 4.0 version being used. So for that, we'll say .NET new IS4MT, which is one of the template that got installed with the previous command. This is the template I want to use. And the name of the project I want to give as identity server. So -n means name. The name that I'm giving is identity server. .NET is the command. New says new project. Space IS4MT is the template name that I want to use. -n means what I give after this is name. The name of the project being created will be identity server. Press enter. Your project gets created by the name identity server. Let's build a solution file over here outside the SRC directory so that we'll have the access to all the projects from one single instance of Visual Studio. So let's say cd ... and there issue the command .NET new sln space -n. SLN means solution. By the name quick start and press enter. The solution file gets created. Add our identity server project to this solution. So here for the same, we use the command .NET SLN add current directory /src / identity server / identity server dot CSPROJ, the project name, and press enter. So your project gets added to that blank solution. It's just like in Visual Studio when we say add existing project. Same thing we did by using the command.
Actually, Sanket, can we not
Yeah.
create these things in Visual Studio using the templates? Why are we using the command lines here?
We can, but the templates were not available for this identity server thing by default in Visual Studio. So for that, we will require the templates to be installed there also with the search box. Right? So it's one and the same thing. Actually, it doesn't matter whether you do it on command line or Visual Studio. If you know how to get the new templates added to Visual Studio from within Visual Studio UI, you can do that from there also. There is no problem. Let me show you. Here we go to Visual Studio. Let's say I just close this box.
when we say template, it is like scaffolding.
Project template. It's project template. Initial scaffolding, you can say, but not what we see in MVC usually.
Okay.
Right. So here we have Visual Studio Marketplace, from where we can actually go to templates, Visual C#, and then search for the different templates. So let's say I'm looking for ASP.NET. I select ASP.NET and then use the search box to search for the specific templates. But my point.
Yes.
So what we did with the command line can be done from here also. Now, in fact, if I go to new project, here I should be able to see the identity server 4 templates also. Yes or no? Under
Yes.
web category. So identity server 4 templates, if I'm looking to search, I can just go to extensions, manage extensions, Visual Studio Marketplace, templates, C#, and then I search for identity server 4 dot templates.
You need to
Or
select this ASP.NET.
it does the global search also. Even if I don't select this, that should be okay. Maybe it's already installed, that's why it is not showing. As under installed, we should be able to see them. Or any other place. Just give me a moment. I'll confirm it. It's usually done from here only.
There was a paging in between when you were searching. I think in page number 2 or 3.
Yeah. Identity server 4. By this name, it should be able to locate actually. Already installed one should be visible here. Come on, here it is. As of now, it looks like it is just showing the third-party ones, not the official Microsoft templates. Okay. Wait a moment. Mm, Are you able to search for it from extensions? Anybody?
No.
Should be searchable ideally. Okay, I'll let you know how to actually search for it and get it. There seems to be some issue here. Let's not
So some
waste time.
people,
At least, yeah,
Google said, I just searched for this kind of issue.
yeah.
So Google said like some of the answer like you have to reinstall the Visual Studio or repair the Visual Studio.
Uh, yeah, probably that means from Visual Studio installer you have to do it. But I checked
Yes.
that actually not all templates are available from there as well. Ideally, this is the right location what we were looking at. So I'll just confirm that. Okay, probably
Yes.
in next or next to next session, I'll just confirm that where to search for
Yeah.
the templates. Okay.
So some people say like uninstall and reinstalling can fix this issue. This is some of the answer
May
on
not be
Microsoft.
required for very basic templates which come by default. It works, but for any custom templates that will not work because we didn't selected it either, right? So repair install
Yep.
will not do anything. It's a
Yep.
new installation we are looking for.
Okay.
Okay, so let's keep that aside for now. Uh, we anyhow got our templates installed with the command, right? So that should be good enough. And because of that, here in the new project dialog, we are able to see them as well. Point is, some way should be there where I should be able to get all these templates, right? So here we have all the identity server 4 templates available here. We don't need to waste time in this. Okay. Earlier they were not there. If you remember, it started with this only under web
So-
category, right?
Yeah, since we run that command, it's showing this
Yeah,
one.
correct. So we just need to
Okay.
find the UI of it, from where we can get them added. I'll confirm on that. So for now, what we will do is we'll just open our solution. So let's say file open project solution, go to the path where quick start folder is created. In that, there is a file quickstart.sln. Select that and open it. So your solution should open, and in that, the SRC folder must have the project identity server already placed into it. Yes.
Yes.
Now here, there is a file called as config.cs by default added, which contains some configuration like what will be the API scope, uh, something about the identity resource that is OpenID and all, where behind the scenes it uses OAuth, and then some client configuration already going in. Yes. Our target right now is to modify the API scope. Let's modify this part, new API scope. In the curly braces, put new API scope. Look at the third overload of the constructor. I'm sorry, which is asking for the name of this API scope. Let's give that as API1, followed by the display name. Let's say we will be calling our API as my API. Right? So this will be the logical name of the API for the developers further. And by this name, it will be identified, it will be searched for, and it will be integrated with the client applications. Okay. Next part is we need to define the clients. So basically, the known clients will be responded. Unknown clients will not be. So whatever the authentication authorization request comes to me, to whom I should respond depends on whether I know that client or not. Means whether it's a registered client or not. If registered client, then I will say yes or no, whether I know the user or not. If it is coming from a client which is not registered with me, I'll not just respond. I'll just say unauthorized access. So here I build my client list. I say there is a new client with object initializer. I'll initialize its properties, starting with client ID. Let's say my first client ID is client. 1 or just client. What type of credentials the client is going to send me to get validated or authenticated? That is set with the help of allowed grant types, which are all set to the enum grant types dot client credentials. So user ID password for the client needs to come to the identity server, after which the identity server will prepare a token and share back with the client. Then for this also, to prove its identity, apart from the client ID, it needs to pass a secret key, something you can consider as a password for the client itself, client application itself. So I say client secrets equals to new secret the value for it, let's say secret, some string. It should be encoded string ideally. So I convert this normal string to encoded string by using the encryption algorithm named as SHA-256. The higher the number, the more is the encryption level. And then I say which scopes are allowed. So here I say allowed scopes is equal to the scope that we have defined earlier by the name API1. So here I say it is API1. So client ID and client secret are like user ID and password for the application itself. You need not enter user ID password yourself, so that the server knows which client is looking to connect to it. Azure AD also requires application registration, right? Without which it doesn't respond to the application. So it's the same thing what we are looking to do here. This is app registration in the identity server. Got it? Yes.
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 Next, open your startup.cs file. Because it's a .NET Core based application, ultimately ASP.NET Core based application. You once again have the startup class with configure services and configure method already placed. Correct? Here, locate your configure services method. Already you have var builder equals to services.add identity server. Some options already placed over here. It says add in memory identity resources, add in memory API scopes, take the scopes from config, memory clients, take it from config as well. Right?
Right. Yes.
Okay. One more thing that I would like to add over here is, in fact, some changes I'm going to make over here. Comment out this line, add in memory identity resources. Or maybe we can just leave it, just add the additional part, dot add developer signing credential. This is required only while the application is being developed, only dev scenarios, to make the user flow simpler for the developers. This will actually bypass the need for having a client certificate, digital certificate. Otherwise, you need to have a digital certificate mandatory. So before deployment, we will remove this, apply the certificate to the port on which the application is going to run, and then deploy the application. Got it?
Okay.
Next. Save the application, build it to see all good. Your identity server configuration is almost done. Let's say start without debugging. We are running some security specific stuff. Hence, this privacy error comes in usually by the Chromium uh, browser engine. No need to worry. You just click on advanced and click on proceed to localhost, though it says it is unsafe. But because this is our own thing, there is no problem going ahead with this. Once you get this not found, here you say update the URL to make it look like slash dot well hyphen known slash open id hyphen configuration and press enter. There should be some JSON document content being displayed here. Okay, there is some error. It's wrong. Let me check.
I can see that for me.
Yeah, ideally it should be visible. What about others? Is everyone able to see? Please confirm.
Yes, it's showing not found.
No, not found. I'm not saying. There should be some JSON documentation available, which talks about like the token provider information. JSON document is expected here. Anybody able to see that?
Yeah, I can see that.
Can you share your screen so that everyone can refer?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what the output I'm expecting. Just raise hands, those who have got this. Allow me some time. I'm just trying to fix my thing also. Meanwhile, just confirm those who have got the desired result by raising your hand. Yeah, so it got fixed for me also. There was a port conflict, in fact. I believe there is some service running on my machine on port number 5001, which is the default port chosen. I'll just share my screen again. Is it visible?
Yes.
So no changes I made to this code, no changes I made to this code, ideally. And one more thing, I just noticed that add developer signing credential already being called over here. So you need not place it here again. So either you keep this or you keep this one and the same thing. I just made a small change here in properties launch settings.json. Port number 5001 I replaced with 6001. And now when I start it, here there is a console window which is opening up and showing that my application is up and running, and different URLs being displayed to send different kind of requests. I just keep this minimized, and here I put my remaining part slash dot will dash known slash open ID dash configuration, press enter, and this is the JSON document I'm getting. Right? Not formatted for me, but yeah, the point is the JSON information is there. Right? There are browser settings using which you can actually make it look pretty and little bit more readable. Do you get it? Yes. This is all metadata about the identity server and what kind of request can come where, what all endpoints are there. This is all actually talking about the same. Okay. Now next I want to create my API project. Let's close the browser. If the console window for the server is already up and running, let's stop the server there first of all by pressing some key. And then let's add a new web API project over here. So adding web API project now can be done right from here. Right click on SRC folder, add new project. Look for ASP.NET Core Web API. Click next. Let's give the name as API. Say next. .NET 5. Configure for HTTPS. Enable open API support all needed. Create. Meanwhile, I'll close all the open files here. Once the API project is created, just go to properties, launch settings.json. And here the port number should be changed. Application URL. I want this to be hosted on 7001. Sorry, 7000 for HTTP and 7001 for HTTPS. Make the necessary change, save this file and close it. Done. Next. Remove this weather forecast, or maybe for now, just leave it. Just go to the controllers folder, right click and say add controller. API on the left hand side, API controller empty here. Add. Let's name this controller as identity controller. Set the root to just identity. I don't want API slash identity to be used. Directly identity, no API. And I want this to be accessible to only the logged in users. So here I put authorize attribute. Resolve the namespace or just put the using statement on the top, Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.Authorization to get authorized attribute. Next, let's add our first action result over here. So I say public I action result get. This should be callable with HTTP GET request. So here I put the attribute HTTP GET. And here I say return new JSON result. I put a language integrated query statement over here whose result needs to be returned back. I say from CN user dot claims. It's like pick each claim one by one and select type and value properties from that claim. So here I say select new anonymous object I create here where I return the type property from C. And C dot value. Yeah, so add one more using statement over here for making this work. That is system dot link so that the link query will execute. Now, what is claim? Claim is more about the metadata that the user possesses. Who is the user? What is his ID? What all permissions he has got? Everything combined together to form claim. And there can be different claims, right? I belong to a admin role. I belong to HR role. I belong to finance role. These are also claims. User claims, then server verifies whether the claim is correct or not. Understand?
Yes.
Once this is done, save everything. Go to Solution Explorer. For the API project, select dependencies. Right click, manage NuGet packages. Go to browse and search for the package by the name Microsoft.ASP.NET Core dot authentication.jwt bearer. This is the package. Install the package, which is the latest for your .NET version. So 5.0.17 seems to be the right option. And click install. Okay. I accept and your package should get installed. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Let's close these two tabs. Next, for the API project, open your startup.cs file. Go to your configure services method. After add controllers, put services dot add authentication provider as the dependency. What type of authentication we are looking for is a bearer token. So let's say authentication with string bearer with capital B going in as input dot who will validate that bearer. So here we say add JWT bearer, JSON Web Token bearer. Bearer name goes once again inside the parameter list as the first parameter. So here I say bearer. This name and the name we gave here must match. And then the processing code. So comma options goes in. So lambda expression will provide me the logic. Curly braces for the method body, semicolon at the end. Arrange it to make it look like multi-line implementation for better readability. What it does is it says options.authority is who is going to actually validate. So our identity server is going to validate. I'll say https://localhost. Till here, it's all same for all of us. But my identity server is running on a different port than 5001. Hence, I'll put the port on which my implementation is running. 6001. You can check which port to be used by going to identity servers properties launch setting.json. Which port is here? If it is 5001, put 5001. If it is 6001, put 6001 there. Understood? Understood?
Yes.
Then I set another property that is options.token validation parameters. New token validation parameters. This namespace will be required to be imported. So first I put using statement using Microsoft dot identity model dot tokens. Then I can directly use the class name token validation parameters here with validate audience being set to false. I mean, the client name or client source will not be validated. Client identity will be validated instead of client source, which URL the client is sending the request from. That's what I'm ignoring. Rest everything needs to be validated. Done? Next, go to configure method. And just before use authorization, make the call to app.use authentication. As without authentication, authorization doesn't do anything. Okay. Save. Then go to Solution Explorer, right click solution, set, go to properties, set multiple startup projects as the option with identity server being the first priority. Use these arrows to set the priority or the sequence. Identity server needs to be started. API also needs to be started. So just set action to start. Remember, identity server must be first and then followed by API. Click apply, click OK. And then click on start. Both the projects will start running. Your identity server console will be open. One of the browser window will show that as well. So here, if you say slash dot well known open ID configuration. This should be accessible. And your another browser instance will open up with the Swagger UI, where identity is getting displayed. The API is getting displayed, weather forecast is getting displayed. If I click on get and try it out and execute, I must get unauthorized access 401. Reason, now my API is authorized or available to authorized users only. I'm not providing any credentials. The same is the result I expect when I say slash identity. So it gives me HTTP error 401. That means unauthorized access, right? Correct? So you just created your secure API. So configuration for any API will remain like this only. Hope you understand that. Whatever we have put in configure services and configure method, this is in the API project. And your API, whichever it is, it could be department's controller instead of identity controller. You just need to have authorized attribute on it. What you return from here is your thing. This can be your department data, no problem. I just run it once again. I'm more interested in the Swagger UI. I just try weather forecast, get, try it out, execute. This gives me the data without any problem. No unauthorized access. Reason? There is no authorized requirement that I have put on it, right? If I want my weather forecast API also to be accessible only when the user is authorized, what I need to do is go to weather forecast controller and put simple authorize attribute here as well. Save, start again. Wait for the Swagger UI. Click on get for weather forecast, try it out, execute. I get 401 for this also. Because now, before I don't log in and provide the correct credentials, known credentials, I will not get the access to my API. So my API is now more secure. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So just one thing which is pending, which we'll see in the next session, is how do I make the calls to this API? So the client project we will be looking at before anything else in the next session on Friday. Right?
Yeah, so hope will also talk about the bearer token expiration.
Yes, yes.
policy
So in
later.
fact, that is what we will be looking at. How to actually pass the bearer token in Postman. We will start right from there. How to test. I mean, from the browser, we are not able to, right? So using Postman, if I want to test this API without passing bearer token, I will not be able to do that. I need to receive bearer token for the API, and I need to put that bearer token into the request header so that my API call can be successful. That will be the first thing. And then we will see how the client application can do that. Because user is not expected to work with the tools like Fiddler or Postman, right?
Yeah.
So once we understand the process, writing the client becomes much more easy. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. You're looking to ask something.
Yeah, from this API, since we have a solution, identity solution as well in the
Yeah.
here. So can we debug and check how exactly the authentication happens?
Not actually, because this all is coded into the built-in .NET Frameworks APIs and NuGet package APIs, right? So as we don't have the source code for it, we will not be able to find out exactly how the things are working. But yeah, conceptually, we know what is happening. There is an identity server to which the API is forwarding the request. API receives the request, but then it finds that, okay, authorized attribute is there. So automatically it communicates with the identity server. And
So
how
if we,
and
okay.
what basis it communicates is what we have configured here. If you see,
Okay.
we have given authentication. So it uses bearer
Yeah.
token. This redirects to the identity server.
Okay. So if we want to customize the identity server solution, for example,
You can have your own implementation in that case.
so for example, in the same template, I can edit with
Yes.
my override
Yes. Correct. So
below
the
solution.
complete object model is available. You have abstract classes, interfaces, with the help of which you can actually create your own APIs, right? I mean, own identity server implementation. Got my point?
Okay. So this
It's
is the
mainly config.cs which you have to work upon.
Okay. So this is the default one. So
Yeah.
in turn, we can again customize each and every
Correct.
this method
Correct.
based on our
Correct.
need.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. Just explore this class, config class for the same.
Config class. Okay.
Yeah. All customization is supported from here itself. In fact, you don't need to write some extra classes for this. Changing the content of this configuration here itself allows you to override the default behavior. Understand?
Yeah. So in what scenario we may require, like we need to customize?
Requirements might be something like, okay, I need to add few more checks, let's say, not just authentication authorization, but I need to look for some sort of approvals or something. I need to change the overall flow there. Then I probably need to customize this, right?
Okay. But
Like
base
the
flow would
user is
be
registered, but user needs to be approved by the manager.
but the base
Understand?
flow would be the basic flow would be intact, right? Like same.
Right, right. So this is something which is like mandatory in all the cases.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
On the top of this, whatever additional things you want to carry on, you can just configure that accordingly.
Okay.
Because what we have configured here is the main requirement of identity server, right?
Yeah.
One more thing, this identity server is not mandatory. This can be replaced with Azure AD also.
Yeah.
Instead of creating this project, I can just map my API to get authenticated and authorized from Azure AD. I don't need this project in that case at all, because Azure AD already has got all this stuff into it, built into it.
So in case if you want to add external service provider like Google or something,
Same way,
we need
same
to
way.
customize this, right? Again.
You don't need to customize this. There are already providers available. You just need to connect to the right identity server in that case.
Okay.
Every provider has got their own client SDK for this. So this code will be replaced by the provider specific code. Yeah, if you want that, there has to be identity server, which then communicates with different identity providers. Then the customization will be needed. Say
Okay.
I have identity server 1, which is Azure AD. Identity server 2, which is Google identity provider. Identity server 3, which is LinkedIn identity provider, right? My first priority is Azure AD. If the user is not found there, then go to Google. If it is not found there also, then go to LinkedIn. In that case, probably I'll need this, and this will encapsulate the other 3 providers. Make sense?
Yeah. But in sometimes we will give options, right, for user, like if you want to log in with the email or Gmail or
That's done at the client end only. So we actually put the configuration of the identity provider in client.
Client side, right? Okay.
Yeah. So there will be no intermediate identity server in that case.
Okay.
It will be direct identity servers. So user flow is configured at the client application directly.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So this is like application to application identity check we are doing. If it is user to application, in that case, it will be required to be configured at the client end.
Okay. So for example, I have one question. For example, we have we need to perform some single sign-on operation, for example. So you will redirect for 5 applications, same SSO we are using.
Same
So you
token,
will
same token.
So this is a kind of I can see this is a console application, right?
Yeah.
It will this. So we
Right
need to
now-
again create
Right now,
a
we have
UI
not
for
built
that?
any client as such. Okay. This
Okay.
is a web API application.
Yeah. Okay. For that,
Now
again, you need
see,
to, yeah.
correct. So your client, if requires SSO, say there are 5 clients, client 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You just need to configure all of them here
So we
with
need
the
to
same
also,
secret.
we need to also create some form like user ID, password, so that any application which registered this first redirectors, first it will be directed to the.
That's your choice. That's your choice. Like when the
Okay.
client sends the credential, whether you want hard-coded credentials to be passed or accepted from the user, that's your call, depending on your application's need. So you can connect the actual user logging into your application, his credentials to be used to be validated also. So in that case, form is required. But if your applications users are different and API users are different for additional security, in that case, most likely the credentials will be hard coded or those will be represented by some digital certificate or something instead of user ID password
User ID,
combination.
password, user ID, password, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Saket,
Understand?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
with
go
this
ahead.
identity,
Yeah.
we can send the OTP on the email of the user, right? To confirm that is the right email of the user.
Yeah, so that comes under the user registration process, not the part of this. That is a different flow
Okay.
altogether, Omkar.
So that is comes under
Okay.
two-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication.
Correct, correct. So not for this. This is mainly for checking the authenticity,
Okay.
not the user
Okay.
registration flow being maintained here. Understood?
Yes, yes. Yeah. Thank you.
So again, if you go with Azure AD, in that case, Azure AD has got its own default MFA configured for it, right? You just need to go ahead and use the right flow there. So that makes it even more simpler. Now that's a ready-made identity server, right? Okay, then. So see you on Friday, 9:30 a.m. Just go through this project as well. See what level you can customize this further. Come up with your queries, and then we'll start with the next session. So using this from within the Fiddler, first of all, that's the first thing that we will be looking at. Then the client application, we'll be using console application for simplicity, right? And then we'll be moving on to versioning and documentation for web APIs. Little bit on asynchronous programming. And then if time permits, we'll be starting with the unit testing. Otherwise, that will move on to the next session. Okay.
Yeah. Can we also once go to some external provider authentication with client, like for example, Google? Is it possible?
Okay, let me check if that is possible in next session itself. I'll do that. Otherwise, I'll just plan something for it.
Sure. Thank you.
Right? Maybe we once we reach the end of the training, there we will be able to build something more specific, as we have the client side application with React also planned towards the end, right? So we will have a full-fledged application in that case. So if not possible in next session, we will try to integrate it there.
All right.
So for sure,
Thank
we will see that. Okay.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. So bye-bye for the day. Recording will be available in next 2 to 3 hours for today's session.
Saket,
Yeah.
hello. Thanks for the
Yeah,
session,
go ahead.
Saket. Hope there is a session on Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we have got the dates till 30th. That's fine.
Mhm. I'll once again confirm that also. I'll ask Vikas to get back to you on that.
Sure, sure. That will help.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, bye.